What up, y'all? You know what time it is. It's time for the hottest party in late night. It's the Monique Show.
He's the youngest person to lead the oldest civil rights organization in this country. Please welcome the CEO and president of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, Mr. Ben Jealous. Have a seat, Mr. Jealous. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, sister. How are you?
Welcome to the penthouse.
It's great to be here.
Now, we're going to go back a little.
Sure.
Grew up in Northern California.
Yeah.
And what I love when I read the notes of folks, our folks that sit on a couch, we only think we know one thing. But when you find out about who they really are and what they're into, I would have never given you a skier, nor would I have given you a surfer.
I'm a third-generation skier.
Third-generation skier, down the slopes, real snow.
That's right.
With skis.
Was there last weekend.
Do you have on helmets and pads and everything?
No. My 5-year-old daughter does, but not me.
So you that bad with it, Ben,
yes.
That you go down with no protection?
None.
Now listen, we're going to need our president of the NAACP, so we can't have you going down these damn slopes with no protection, Ben, here.
But see, no one actually believes that the president of the NAACP is there on the slopes.
You're absolutely right, and then you leave the slopes and you go get on the water to surf with the whales and the sharks. What's happening, sugar?
Well, the president of the U.S. is a black surfer, so we're actually coming up in the world.
Do y'all see what's going on with our brothers in the United States of America, baby? Get with it, or you're going to get left behind. We skiing, we surfing, we doing big things, sugar. Look at our president right here, the NAACP. But how do you go from skiing, surfing, to being this fighter?
I spend my summers in West Baltimore.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that'll make you a fighter, baby. That'll make you swing. Get back.
So, and you gotta love West Baltimore to spend your summers in West Baltimore.
Yes.
You know?
How was it, though? How was it for you?
I mean, it was family. I mean, the beauty of West Baltimore, when I spent my summers there, was that we had people like Juanita Mitchell and Clarence Mitchell and Judge Watts who were just there. And my grandparents who, my grandma used to watch Juanita's kids when she would run the branch meetings over in McCullough Homes, where my mom grew up kind of 0 to 7. And those folks knew what they lived for. They knew what they died for. Judge Watts would come up to me, was one of the first black judges in Baltimore, when I was 4, and say, what do you want to argue about? What do you want to fight about? Scared the bejesus out of me. But by the time I was 6, I was ready. I had planned out my argument. He would walk into my granddad's bar in the basement of his brownstone in West Baltimore, and I would just lay right into the judge. And that was the beauty of it, was that we had everybody there in the neighborhood. People think West Baltimore, think The Wired, and that's what it's become. But back then, when folks polished their steps,
yes,
and when our giants walked among us, it was a great place to be a kid.
It was a great place to be, but I think West Baltimore, like a lot of our other neighborhoods, something got lost. Something went somewhere where we stopped. We went somewhere where we stopped
coming on Sunday
together.
for church.
Right.
And people talk about white flight, we talk about black flight. When you stand in Central Harlem, you don't miss middle class, you miss middle class black people. Mm-hmm. And we say, our kids, look, what's for certain, what's a possibility is a kid might grow up to be like somebody who they see, but what's almost a certainty is that they will not grow up to be like somebody who they don't see. And if they don't see us.
Now, Ben, when you first got the position, for me, it was the first time I had heard of Ben Jealous.
Sure.
And I was like, all right, brother, get it, but didn't know the history of you.
Right.
And what I think is important for y'all to know, this brother has been fighting for us for a long time. Columbia University, they put you out because you protest.
Yeah.
What was the protest about?
Well, the protest we were kicked out for, and there was 4 of us, we were the first students kicked out in 20 years. Was because they were trying to take the ballroom where Malcolm X had been assassinated, and Marcus Garvey had led his movement, and so many other great movements have led the Audubon Ballroom in Harlem, tear it down and turn it into a biogenetic research facility of a type that the federal government said was unsafe to be within 50 miles of a densely populated area. And they want to stick it right in the middle of Harlem. But the students who they kicked out were only the ones who had led the financial aid protests the year before.
Now, they kick you out, but then you go back.
Yeah, well, I went down to Mississippi. The governor was fixing to turn a black college into a prison. And we had to put a stop to that, and we did. And I came back years later, and when I left, it was funny. When I walked in, I heard a ringing in my ears. The first black male teacher I ever had, who was my college professor. That's how long it took me to have a black teacher. And he had said to me when I was a freshman, Ben, I came back a few years ago from the Rhodes Scholarship. You would be a great Rhodes Scholar. And I was like, have you seen my grades?
All right.
And he was like, yeah, you're going to need to improve those. But if you improve those. And so I did nothing but just focus on my grades for 2 years. I mean, the first 2 years of college, I was leading protests, I was in sports, I was working 30 hours a week as an organizer up in Harlem. The last 2 years, I did what I advise so many young people to do, which is just get serious about the books. And my GPA the first 2 years was like a 3.0, and the second 2 years was above a 4.0. And that put me in a whole other league. And when they throw you out and call you a terrorist, and then you come back, and they graduate you with honors and call you a Rhodes Scholar, it changes things.
But that speaks about the fight of being jealous, baby. They put you out, then you come back and become a Rhodes Scholar. Ben, with the NAACP, what's the mission right now, and how do we get it back to where it was in the beginning, where we stood proudly, and we got in lines to get our memberships, and we made sure we were at those meetings. We made sure we knew what was going on. How do we get us back to that?
We have to be absolutely focused on dealing with right now. People say that young people are lazy, or they've lost the spirit. No, young people are overwhelmed. When you're coming up and the school's a dropout factory and your block's $1 million block because they spend more than $1 million to lock up the men off that block, and you know that kids like you are 1 out of 7 kids in the country, black kids, but 1 out of 2 new youth HIV cases. It's incumbent upon us as grown-ups to say, this is the focus. Yes. We have to destroy the school-to-prison pipeline. We have to make sure that every brother who wants a job can find a job, because the gang always has a job. And we have to be ruthlessly focused. And if we're talking about now, and we're talking about what people's children's, how we unleash their children's dreams, which has always been the work of the NAACP. Our work has been to unleash the dreams of black and brown and poor kids in this country. If we're focused on that, the rest takes care of itself.
I see all of your passion about what you believe in coming through right now, brother. And being the president of this wonderful organization, what would you say has been your proudest moment?
I started out in this work almost 20 years ago, but 20 years ago in September, sifting mail from inmates at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. I had a 3-year backlog of letters from inmates. It was like opening screams on paper. And when I stood there watching Jamie and Gladys Scott come out of prison, at the order of a Mississippi governor, who's a no-joke Mississippi governor, it exceeded seeing the first black president take oath of office. That was going to happen at some point. I mean, there's just nothing that compares.
Can I say this to you, brother? We are proud and honored that you represent us as the president of the NAACP. Y'all give it to him. Been jealous. Y'all let him hear it. Yes, indeed, baby. Thank you, brother.
Stay right there. The Scott sisters join us next.